So the Indiana Fever finally made a signing. They just signed their very first hardship player in the last 2 seasons in Aari McDonald. They had Dantas on a suspended contract last year, but for the first time in 2 years, the Indiana Fever have signed somebody on a hardship. And it's not a bad player. Like, it's really not. She's really not a bad player. And I stand by this, like, as far as, like, level of player is concerned, Aari McDonald is probably as good as they can get. It's as good as the Fever can get. Look, I think there are situations where Aari McDonald doesn't necessarily fit beside Kelsey or Caitlin. Well, I think she can fit beside Caitlin. She can play off the ball. She can play at the 2. There's no question about that Aari McDonald can play at the 2. But it's just whether or not she can play beside Kelsey, because she's about 5'5", 5'6". And she's not a quote-unquote true point guard. She's more small 2 than she is point guard. But look, this is a much better option than bringing in Deja Kelly. Unpopular opinion, it's a much better option than bringing in Deja Kelly. And, like, the perfect backup point guard for the Fever just got waived. Video on this channel. I mean, I think she's a much better option than Sig Coulson. The problem is that it's a, like, genuinely, I don't see it, I don't see her not being on, well, I don't see her not being on the team long term. I can see them trying. So they've signed her on an emergency hardship, which basically means as soon as Coulson, or as soon as Caitlin's back, she's gone. Because I think Sophie's going to be out for, say, let's just say hypothetically, Sophie, she's not wearing anything on her ankle and she's walking in flip-flops. She's probably out for 2 to 3 weeks. So Sophie's out for 2 to 3 weeks. And now they're down to 9 with Caitlin and Coulson gone. Whichever of Caitlin or Sig Coulson come back, if I'm not mistaken, whichever of those 2 come back first, she's suddenly gone. Because you have to have less than 10 players. You have to have 9 or less. So, assuming Sophie's gone, then obviously you've got Sophie, Caitlin, and what's her name? So they're down to 8. And Coulson. And obviously her coming in is 9, which means there's a possibility that Sig Coulson's injury is not long enough to get an emergency hardship. And a lot of people I know, when you're talking about hardship contracts, as far as I'm aware, like, the hardship contracts, hardships allow teams to go over the cap, but money you pay counts on the cap. So if a team's hoping to use their main cap space at a 12th player, that space dwindles every day you have a hardship contract signed. The only thing when it comes to this is it looks very, very likely that it's going to be an extreme short-term hardship. It's going to be extremely short-term. And if it's an extremely short-term hardship contract, then it's not the end of the world for the Indiana Fever. Because, look, if it's like 2 days or something, like if it turns out that Aari McDonald is there for 2 days, then I don't think it's really going to cost the team too much. But obviously, you can see here, she averaged 8.7 points per game for the Sparks, and she's a scorer. I want to see what people's reactions to this are. I don't know why. Why is this not working? Oh, lads, my computer is in a bad spot right now. My mouse is barely working. But so yeah, we're gonna talk really about that. And in my opinion, I do think that when it's all said and done, the Fever are going to, I think they're gonna have a pretty good player that they can get. I think it's a pretty good player to get over, like, if you're not going to be able to bring in a star. Like, if you're not going to be able to bring in a top-tier player, and if they have Aari McDonald for the season, it's not the end of the world either. It's really not. So, yeah, it is all around a really interesting situation, what is happening with the Indiana Fever. And whether or not they end up being in a, like, whether or not they end up getting much out of this, you never know. You just never know. if they're going to get much out of it. You never know if kind of this is it. If they're not going to really get anything. If they're going to gain... Like, look, if they get anything out of this signing, it's a positive. Anything gained by this is an objective positive when it comes to this team, this organization, the club. So, yeah, it's a... All in all, for me anyway, it's a... Like, it's a good signing. It's a good signing. Would I... Again, as I've said, I'd rather see Grace, but... Look, the Fever are probably going to... If they're smart, they're going to start Aari McDonald in the next game. Like, we cannot see Kelsey Mitchell at point guard minutes unless they want to play Aaliyah at point guard. Like, at this stage, I'm like, start Aaliyah at point guard for all I care. Like, they want to run... They literally have said they want to run some weird equal opportunities offense when they don't have the players for that, and they've got players that their natural instincts are to do dumb things. Like as good as Lexi Hull is playing, she's shooting 71% on threes since becoming a starter, and she's barely shooting the three ball. Because instead of shooting the three ball, instead of spotting up, and instead of getting hit for three, she's shooting dirk fades. Like, I don't understand what it is with Stanford graduates and dirk fades. Dejanay seems to be shooting exclusively dirk fades. So, look, it's going to be a really interesting one to see how Aari McDonald gets on with the Fever. Like, I mean, she did go viral, if you guys don't remember. She is the person who went viral for guarding Caitlin Clark when she still had another free throw to shoot. She shot the first free throw, then went and started denying Caitlin Clark and still had the second free throw to shoot. That is what Aari McDonald might be best known for, is the guarding on the free throw. But yeah, overall, it is what it is. It is what it is. I think there could have been better signings, but I think any of the better signings were long-term signings. I think there's a lot of long-term signings that could have made big differences. They could have made a big impact on the Fever. But look, they're paying, while the Fever front office are paying for the mistakes of front offices past. It's not. I don't think it's safe. I think it's safe to say that while the current front office is paying for the mistakes of Lynn Dunn, right now they're paying for their own mistakes. Right now, the front office are paying for the mistakes that they made themselves in the offseason. Overpaying Bree Turner a little bit, going out with 11. Like, all they had to do was just pay Coulson a little bit less and Bree Turner a little bit less, and they could have 12. But they actively chose to go out with 11. Which Coulson's their only backup point guard. Like, that's kind of what you get for it. Regardless of the injuries, like, even without the injuries, Coulson's not a good enough backup point guard, and Aari McDonald, in fairness to her, is way better. So anyway, yeah, that is the video. I will see you guys, and hopefully my computer does not break and it lets me to get shut off this video.